Yes, here we are, live once again, here at the Reentry Connect podcast. I'm your host, Keenan Hudson. We have a good guest on here for the love of wisdom, Syeed King. Yes, doing a lot of powerful work throughout the city of Philadelphia, has programs and everything to offer, but you will hear more about his story and the things that he's doing. Without further ado, as I usually do, just give a shout out to gpstransportation.net, 215-774-9913. If anybody needs some type of special transportation, whether it be 15 passenger, 35 passenger, wheelchair transport, feel free to reach out to them. Mention the Reentry Connect podcast and you'll get a special rate. Shout out to old dad, one day at a time, Mr. Mel Wells. We appreciate everything you do. Recovery support, reentry support. Reach out to Mr. Mel Wells at 215-226-7860. Thanks a lot, Mr. Mel Wells. Well, let's get back to the program here with my good brother, Mr. Syeed King. Yeah, he's here. Mr. Syeed, how you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, indeed. We appreciate having you on here. This broadcast. I know we've been playing with schedules and things like that, but we finally got it, to work out. We appreciate you, man. What I'm going to do is, man, I'm going to let you go ahead and just introduce yourself. Give your accolades and who you are. Because people definitely want to know who you are and the things you do.
I'm Syeed King, and I am the owner of For Love of Wisdom, which is a coaching, training, consultant business where schools and organizations hire me to come in and do leadership training, team building, really just try to help improve production. And then the other side of me, I work at the Philadelphia Juvenile Justice Service Center School, where I am actually the college career awareness specialist. Got a couple number of hats: teacher,
Nice.
help with climate and support. It's various jobs that I do there, and we'll talk more about kind of like some of my activities and things like that.
Indeed. So if
Yeah.
you could just touch on a little bit, what made you, because I know you do a lot of work, especially with a lot of the youth, it's actually the place you're talking about. A lot of people probably used to refer to it as the Youth Study Center. So
Yes.
you deal with a lot of individuals, a lot of kids that come through there. Also, what made you get into that style of work? Because I know working with a lot of teenagers and at-risk youth can be a hassle. Sometimes it's just a step from the actual jail up on State Road. So
Mhm.
can you tell us that experience? What made you get into it, and what goes through your mind during that every day-to-day process with them?
Yeah. So, wow. And that's a loaded question. And I say that because it's been a journey, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, you talk about me as a young kid growing up in Philadelphia, having its, normal challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, being in living in a drug investing environment, growing up in a single parent home, having you know, esteem issues and growing up in that type of environment,
Mm-hmm.
I naturally I had compassion for people who were falling on hard times as I was growing and maturing through and my education, the guiding of my mother and my community. And, the more I continue to mature, I start to find myself elevating in that environment. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I believe you can be consumed by an environment or you can raise above it. Right. And
Wow.
so with that development, I started to raise above it. But at the meantime, as my mentor taught me, reach as you climb. And so I
Mm-hmm.
grew a passion for reaching back and trying to help and bring people in the direction I was going because my esteem started to grow. And
Mm-hmm.
and I went to college and so on. But to fast forward, because I still had that compassion, I decided to go into education. And
Mm.
the first the first school I worked at, which was an alternative school called Community Education Partners. Some people would just say CEP. Right?
Wow.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's where your worst of the worst would come there to get their education because they got kicked out of their regular school.
Middle school, yeah.
And I did that for maybe about 8 years and transitioned into a couple other schools. But I got a one things what happened when the school district of Philadelphia in the early, no, I'm gonna say maybe about around 2008, 9, or whatever, they started to
Mhm.
close schools, right?
Oh wow.
And the school that I was working at was actually closing.
Mm.
So, almost like in the athletic world, right? When your team is folding and things are changing, they get
Hmm.
rid of everybody, you go into what? Free agency.
Wow.
And so Philadelphia had a thing called site selection. Still have it, right? So
Hmm.
now you kind of like get to market yourself and see where you fit. And I saw you study center. I said, I think this is
Hmm.
the place. I think I need to go and work there.
Get in there. Wow.
So
And before you continue to that, before you continue to the youth study center, you made a good um point when you were speaking a little bit earlier. You said that even though you grew up in the drug infested environments and you grew up around all the negativity, you could have been consumed, right? But
mhm,
however, you was able to dodge the jails and the pitfalls.
right,
And you mentioned something else was you had a mentor that told you certain things as well.
right,
So it's showing that not every individual, especially black or brown, because the emphasis on the black and brown community, because that's the majority of people that are incarcerated.
mhm,
But you just showed that everybody, not 100%, are going to go to prison. You know what I'm saying? Or are going to fail at life. But here
correct.
it is. You were able to supersede different things in which society has bestowed upon the African American culture. So could you just touch before you went, before you started work in the actual new study center? Could you touch on a couple things that kept you out of the loop from landing in the prison as a juvenile?
Hmm. So, like one, I mentioned like I had a community, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my mom realized, hey, I can't teach a boy how to be a man,
Mm-hmm.
but I can put him around men, influential men. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because I was on my way, man. Like I was carrying a knife to school, and
Oh
me and my
wow.
boys, we didn't call ourselves a gang, but literally, my mom said, "Oh, what you in a gang?" And it snapped me back into reality. It said, like, "Wow, I am really putting myself in this situation." And so,
Mm-hmm.
she snapped me back into reality, and then I started to, just fall back in line. Like that's not somewhere I want to go. And I had to change my route. But one of the greatest things that happened to me, Keenan,
Mm-hmm.
is I went to Pickett Middle School,
Okay.
and they had a program which I don't know why it don't exist now, but they had a program they called the RAP program. And
Okay.
anybody listening out there that maybe my age or older may remember that, or anybody who can move the needle and make some decisions, have a seat at the table. They need to reconsider this. So I was in middle school, my 8th grade year. They would have me attend school, attend Pickett
Mm-hmm.
1 week. On the alternative week, I would go to Randolph Skill Center,
Okay.
which was a trade school, right? And so you're going there with other high school students. But because I wanted to blend in, I didn't want people to know I was a middle school student because I'm amongst high schoolers, right? You
Mm-hmm.
wanna you wanna upscale who you are, right? You wanna blend in, you don't wanna be like stand out like a sore thumb. So it forced me to mature. And at the same time, while I was trying to mature and be amongst the high schoolers, I was
Mm-hmm.
learning skill. I was
Mm-hmm.
learning the skill of carpentry. So that impressed people and other adults and people, my peers, or people who just was older than me within the neighborhood. They were like, "Wow, you learning that? Yeah, I'm learning that. Oh man, you know what you can do? You know what you can do with that? You can build your own house. You can start your own business." So it started to activate something in my mind, and that
Mhm.
positive response that I was getting, I'm like, I like it, and I want more of it.
Mm.
And so some of the people in the community started to pull me aside and say, "Hey, you could come work with me."
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's powerful, man. So you just showed that by you going through a skills program. Shout out to Monica Mason. She said that rap program was a great initiative. Absolutely. I can actually recall them having like a big brother, big sister wraparound program. I don't know if that was the same one, but I used to be in, but it didn't do no good for me, man. I was always getting in trouble. But yeah, but it was a great initiative. So now moving fast forward into you, like you said, you get involved, you started to get into the youth study center after they said select whatever institution you wanted to go to. And you say you apply for that one.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I applied there because I think of it, Keenan. It's like saving myself. Because like I said, I could have been there. Right. I'm
Gotcha.
carrying a knife to school. I'm fighting and getting in trouble and like
Mm-hmm.
so it's like almost going back in time to save myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at it. Right.
Gotcha.
When I see them, and I tell my students this, they don't understand it. They can't grasp it right now. But it's like when I look at them, I see me.
Mm.
And I was fortunate that someone reached back for me, right?
Wow.
Unfortunately, they don't have that, some of them.
Mm.
And so that's me just trying to do my part and make sure I go back and get them and tell them like, "Hey, you don't have to stay here." Now they may ask, and they may ask, "Hey, Mr. King, you ever been locked up before?" I said, "No." Mm-mm. Well, I don't know. You don't know how it feel. You're right. I don't know how I feel. But one thing I can do, and I learned this from my mentor too, because he
Mm-hmm.
did work in the prisons over in Camden,
Okay.
Dr. George Cross. One of the things he told me, he said, "Look," because I asked, I said, "Doc," I said, "You work in that type of environment. You never been to prison." He said, "Yeah, you're right." He said, "But if I never been to prison, can I show them and teach them how not to go to prison and how to stay out of prison?"
Mm.
That's a good point. I'm still in that one.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Still in
yeah,
that
yeah.
one. So when the young people ask and they try to challenge me and say, "Oh, you don't know how it feels." No, I don't. But what I know, you need to know. Because if I was able to dodge and avoid it, then maybe you need the same thing.
Mm. That's powerful. That's powerful. So now on your everyday, now you've been at the new youth study center. 'Cause the other youth study center used to be over off of
The,
what was that?
over the
Cowell?
park, yeah,
What?
like over the parkway,
Yeah,
around
the
near the
park,
art
right?
museum,
Yeah,
around
yeah.
there, yeah.
So
Mhm.
now, how many years have you been here at the new study center?
So I've been in the day it opened,
Oh
right?
wow,
Yeah, the day it opened. So in transition, it was when I first came aboard, it was in like a 5-year transition of trying to get to the new building. So they were actually on Henry Avenue across from Randolph Skill Center, right?
yeah, wow, everything right in your
Like a full
vicinity.
circle, right? So yeah, I was there for maybe about 6 months, and then we went over to the new building. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, okay. So now, since you've been there, were you able to change any type of lives in any type of way, where you see people doing better, or do you see that there's no hope for any of these juveniles that's in the city of Philadelphia?
So this is one of my things, right? And I teach about this when I do like my leadership seminars. Um, Life starts with you, but it doesn't end with you, right?
Mm.
There's a scripture that keeps me motivated on a daily basis. It says, "Some we plant, some we water, but God gets the increase." So
Mhm.
yes, it's nice to know that if you impacting somebody, you change somebody's life. That's
Mhm.
nice.
Mhm.
But I really at the end of the day, I really don't want to know. Because if I
Mhm.
constantly know that, hey, I changed this person's life, I changed that person's life, and that person's life, if it's going to start to do something to my ego,
Mhm.
right? It's going to start to do
Mhm.
something to my ego. And Monica asked, do I stay in contact with my students when they leave me? There, I do give them my number, and some of them, not enough, end up contacting me, like, and maybe for me to help them get some resources and things like that. So that
Mhm.
is something that I do attempt to do, um, and that's something a system that we're trying to improve, where it's easy for the students to be able to make that contact. Right, we're trying to
Gotcha.
get rid of any possible obstacles. But
Mhm.
yeah, so yes, I have had students who I have seen out in public, and they say, "Oh, thank you." And some of them probably gave me a hard time, and I said, "But you know what, Mr. King?" They was like, "I heard every word you said," and they start quoting me, and I'm
Uh,
like, "I guess you were listening, even though you you
uh,
were disruptive, but you were listening." And it's good. I mean, sometimes they catch me out with my family, and they'll say, "Hey, thank
mhm.
you," and and they'll tell my kids, "Your dad's really helped change my life," and things like that. And that's
Wow.
gratifying. Praise God. I'm thankful for it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So let me ask you this. So I know that a lot of times you tend to have events, you tend to bring people together to motivate and inspire, especially those who may have influence over a lot of these youth today. Now, when we deal now, yeah, I'm gonna touch on it a little bit. So when you're dealing with like music, hip hop, rap,
mhm,
things like that, because the music industry has a huge influence over these kids.
does.
All right. How do you keep the kids sane, right? From them idolizing their idols, right? And the words that they're saying, which is get the ops and do this and do that.
Mhm.
How do you keep them sane, or not even keep them sane, but how do you try to refocus their mind? Like, hey, listen, they're saying it just for entertainment. It's not something that a lot of them are literally doing. Some may be doing it, but at the same time, but how do you change that narrative? I'm not saying you can change their mindset, but how do you try to get them to change their perspective on the way they view that? Because that's the biggest dominant control there is right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you say that, because that's like that's one of the big that really is one of the big things with the music. It really have grabbed hold of our young people, right? And we have seen music change. It's not the same how, when we
Hmm.
were growing up, right? And
Yeah.
so I really, to the best of my ability, I try to avoid it. And
Wow.
what I mean when I say try to avoid it, like, if they ask to play music, I'll tell them I'll play music. Like, if we're doing some work and everybody's settled, I'll play some music, but I'll play some jazz. I'll play some old school R&B, right?
Mm,
I'll put on some Stevie Wonder or something like that to expose them, right? There's times I have done lessons where I did use hip hop, right?
mhm.
But I'll use someone that they never heard of. Someone like one of
Gotcha.
the guys I really like is Toby Nwigwe, right? A Nigerian guy. Um, he was a Grammy nominee, independent artist at that, right? If you listen to Toby's raps, he's like, and everybody is. It took him a while because he was kind of like underground. And it's funny because when I first introduced him to my students, they were like, "Oh, he's whack, he corny." But now, because he has been accepted,
Hmm.
now they giving him his just due. Um,
Wow.
but I always stress, like, you don't hear him curse. You don't hear him use no
Hmm.
curse words. He's not degrading anyone. He he operates in integrity, right? And so he like everywhere he go, he had to bring his family. If you don't allow his family to be present, then he's not going to perform there. He only
Wow.
perform 1 day a week when he's on tour. So he's
Mm-hmm.
not allowing the industry to take over his life and distract
Mm-hmm.
him from his priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So I share that as an example with hip hop and saying, hey, cool, like there's nothing wrong with music. That's part of our culture,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the type of music,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right?
That's powerful.
And so, like, I use examples like that to kind of counter what they listen to on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, when they hear his story and they see how much success and they hear that here he turned down the movie because they said his family couldn't travel with him. He's like, they said, it was Paramount Pictures. They said they wanted him to do Transformers movie. And he was like, oh yeah, well, cool. Yeah, I agree to do it. And they said, well, all right, we're going to fly you up to Canada. I think it was like 60 days. He said, oh no, I don't do that. He said, I was too much time away from my family. He said, if you can't accommodate
Wow.
me and my family, then I'm good. So he hung up.
Mm-hmm.
They called him back, said, hey, we can accommodate you and your family. Cool. He did
Mm.
the Transformers movie. And so
Wow.
I try to show them people like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because while we say, and I'm working on this, we'll ask a young person, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say a profession, whatever that they think they want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I say think because it's not necessarily what they're going to do. They in their mind may change.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to get away from that, and I'm asking, hey, who you want to be when you grow up? Who
Mm-hmm.
do you want to be known for? And I'm talking about character.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about character. Someone who has integrity,
Mm-hmm.
someone who gives respect,
Mm-hmm.
not have respect, gives respect, right? So I'm talking about character because if you can be the greatest artist out there, but if your character stinks, it's going to have an impact, a negative impact on your career.
You're right. You're right. And Mr. Saeed, and if we can touch on, I know you started a organization called For Love of Wisdom, and I know that it's here right here. So can you tell us, like, did you start this before or after you got to the Youth Study Center, and like, what type of services? What did it all entails of what you have going on?
So that's like a yes and no question, right? And
Okay.
so initially, when I was at the first school I ever worked at, which was Community Education Partners, CEP School,
Mm-hmm.
me and my colleagues, we got together because we said, hey, we need something different to offer to these students because we didn't have many
Mm-hmm.
extracurricular activities. So it was like we need something different. So we came up with, we called it For the Love of Wisdom, right? Where we
Mm-hmm.
would bring in people and host different workshops, teaching them how to express themselves creatively, um,
Mm-hmm.
with creatively without. I'm looking at the comments. So I'm
You got, yeah, you can go, you can
yeah,
shout them out. You got some politicians in here as well. Like,
yeah,
yeah, Miss Sharon, she says, sticking to your principles in life is not negotiable. Must
yeah,
always be true to yourself.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely,
Hmm.
totally agree. And so we did For the Love of Wisdom. We had different people come in and speak to them, and we worked with this organization called Arts and Spirituality, and they really got to learn about themselves a little more. So fast forward, that was like in the early 2000s. Fast forward, um, always loved the idea, the whole concept. Back in during pandemic in 2020, I went to my wife. I was telling my wife, I said, hey, I want to offer something to people to inspire them.
Hmm.
And, you know, t-shirts and hoodies and things like that has become a trend where everyone is being expressive. So I say, I want people to wear what they say and say what they wear, right? I want people to be a walking conversation. And so I just had these inspirational messages, and I and then it's like, well, all right, what can I call this thing? And I went back to my roots, and I said, because we're talking about expression, I said, for love of wisdom, flow.
Mm.
So I took the out, and I just said for love of wisdom. And and the whole thing was helping people. Initially, this is how I started, helping people pursue wisdom, push them in the direction of obtaining wisdom. And so you never know it all, right? The goal is
Mhm.
to, not only um, learn more, but be able to do more, right? And so wisdom helps with that. So I use the scripture, Proverbs 4:7. It says, get wisdom, but though it's going to cost you everything, get understanding.
Mm.
And so that was the start of For Love of Wisdom in 2020. And then I
Mhm.
had an epiphany, and I was like, yes, t-shirts, hoodie, that's nice, but I need more. I got to offer more substance to it. I can't I can't just leave a person in a hoodie or t-shirt, and but there's nothing behind it. And so might as well just put it on a mannequin. Right. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna go into coaching, and I was able to connect with one of the top motivational speakers, number one motivational speaker, Eric Thomas, and
Mm.
got in his camp, and he took me under their wing and helped train me, and I started a coaching and consulting business, which I
Mm.
always did motivational speaking, always did that. And so it's like, all right, well, for love of wisdom, it's going to be birthed to even more. Now we
Wow.
have more substance. So now
Now, so what services do you offer?
So yeah, so consulting. I have clients who work in corporate who need another perspective, and need some input on how to improve and increase production. And so I do, consulting work, coaching individuals who are going through transitions in their lives and need a sense of direction, helping coaching them, and speaking and training. So, like I said, I have spoken at graduations, and I go into companies and do some
Mhm.
professional development. I call it, well, I'll say professional development. I think more importantly, the personal development, because you
Gotcha.
can be the greatest uh, executive, teacher, business person, but if your life stinks,
Mm.
your business is gonna start to stink too.
Wow.
If you
Wow.
can't get along with your spouse or get along with your children,
Mhm.
then that's gonna pour into your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, um, with my clients, we work on those things. We
Mhm.
discuss those things, right? And try to make sure that look at life in four quadrants, right? And make sure all the quadrants are stable.
Mhm. Mhm. That's cool. That's cool. So now I know some people may be wondering if they wanted to get in contact you in some type of way. How can they contact you? Is it through email? Is it through phone number? What would you like to give them?
Yeah, so they can contact me through email info@forloveofwisdom.com. If they want
Okay.
to, if they need some support, they want to contract me for training their staff, their team,
Hmm.
or do something with their youth, because I've done youth workshops with various different schools, Imhotep being one of the latest. And
Hmm.
if they were, want to contact me by phone, they can contact me at 484-580-9631. And you can call or text.
So you said they can call you at that number? Okay. 484-508-9631. Appreciate that.
510-9631. Yes.
Okay. And just had another comment there. The brother Joey, he said, way to highlight someone who has such a clear vision on life, brother. Appreciate you, Joe. That's
Yeah.
over on
Thank you, Joe.
LinkedIn. So people tuning in.
Yeah.
So if you want to share more, if you wanted to, well, let me ask you this. If you could encourage somebody, right now that's in a jail cell, whether they're about to make the wrong decision, whether they're in a halfway house or in a house, wherever they are right now, if you could motivate them in some type of way, in what way would you motivate them right now?
I'd like to say, and it's recently a quote that I've been using myself and helping me through some of the challenges that I may have is get over yourself,
Mm,
right? Get over yourself. Because a
mhm,
lot of times we get caught up in our emotions, our feelings, and it get in the way and it keep us away from dealing with our actual problems. So get over yourself.
mm,
You know? Like someone is dependent on you to be there. Someone's dependent on you to pick up the phone. Someone dependent on you to pick them up. Somebody's dependent on you to teach them something, right? We all have something to offer in life. I have a saying where I say, I was created to change the world, but just as much as I was created to change the world, so are you. And together we are the solution. We all have a part to play in this thing called life. And so find out what's your part, right? Know that somebody is dependent on you. Somebody loves and care about you. If you are incarcerated, if you are in a halfway house, right? Understand that you're not doing that time by yourself because someone is relying on you to come home. Someone is dependent on you to be there in their future and play a part. So get over yourself
wow.
and see that you have something to offer.
Mm. You make a good point, man, because you mentioned something good too that you said about the change we want to see in the world. I believe it was Muhammad Gandhi that said that. He said, we must be the change we want to see. You know what I'm saying? So just because other people is doing it, a certain way, you could do it a different way as well. But as long as we're taking that initiative and improving somewhere. A lot of people think we have to be jacks of all trades doing every single thing. So now that's not true. I mean, there may be things a person may be stronger than me at. You know what I'm saying? People tell me, well, you do a lot of things. Yeah, I do a lot of things, but there's some things I wish I could do, or just some things I can learn. So
Right,
why not learn from you or learn from somebody else? You
right.
know what I'm saying? But again, that's one of the things that we just learn in life, man, step at a time. But we appreciate you, Mr. Syeed. And we just thank you for coming on the show. We know you have a lot of different events coming up, things like that. Is there anything else you want to inform the world about? Anything to look out for? You can feel free to share now.
Yeah, man, I'm excited closing out this month and we'll be hosting and I can't wait for you to come through, man. I really can.
Oh,
Well,
indeed.
annually at the Philadelphia Juvenile Justice Service Center, we do the Young Men Empowerment Summit. It's a
Wow.
2-day event, right? And
Mm,
so annually we do that. When we bring in brothers like yourself, who want to make a difference, and they come in and speak to our young people, and
mhm.
lift them up, give them hope, right?
Yeah,
Like like you said, we can't all do it by ourselves. We need help, right? And
yeah, yeah.
so we're calling out people out in the community, people who want to have impact and implement change with our young people. Like I
Mhm.
tell people, I don't understand why every politician do not set foot in the Philadelphia Juvenile Justice Service Center. Sorry if I'm
Mm.
stepping on any toes, but
Oh,
every
well,
politician should have come there. You go to the scene of the crime, right?
yeah,
And you
yeah,
talk
yeah,
to these young people and see, hey, what motivated you?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
what would have prevented you from coming here? Like,
Mm.
what can we do differently to prevent other people from into this trap? Because that's what it is a trap.
It's a trap. That's powerful, man. That's
So
powerful.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, we have that coming up on May 21st and 22nd, and also we're doing the same thing with another version of it on June 2nd at one of our annex buildings, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward.
Yeah.
To it. Yeah.
Cool, absolutely. We appreciate it. Another shout out. Thank you, Mr. Gary Bullard. We appreciate it. Said, no, have I created thee. He thou has abased thyself. Rise into which thou was created. We appreciate that quote you put there. Without further ado, it's the Reentry Connect podcast. I'm your host, Keenan Hudson. For love of wisdom, Mr. Syeed King, we appreciate everything you do, all the things that you're offering. You're taking care of those youth. Can't wait to see you in the near future, at one of these events. That's going to be a blessing. And without further ado, man, everybody else have a good evening. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And until next time,